Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mild Mannered EDC. I hope you're all doing really well out there. So today we're going to take a look at a knife, well, a variant of a knife that is really one of my favorite all-time EDCs, and that is the Kizer T1. So if you've been a member or a subscriber of this channel, following me over Instagram, whatever, for any period of time, you'll know that the Kizer T1 is just one of my favorites. It's just a beautiful knife. Everything from construction, materials, design. I mean, it's really a classic, elegant design. And I think goes head to head with really even today, still any of the knives being made out there. In particular, the price point on this always felt very competitive. Now you can tell mine is one of the older models because it has that old Kizer swirly floral kind of pivot on it. And so I think the new ones are just the kind of the standard silver. There it is. That's the word I'm looking for, pivot, or pivot screw, pivot hardware. But by and large, that's really the only changes that they've made on this knife over the years. And in fact, I don't think there's really been any other variants of the T1 out there that I'm familiar with. Now, I may very well be wrong, and if I'm wrong, or please, put down in the comments if you know of one that's out there, apart from the one that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But it really surprises me that this platform, it's taken kind of this long for this platform to really, get a refresh or to get some kind of a new option some new options out there on it, because it really is an excellent knife, especially back in its day. And in fact, even today, the price on it is pretty darn compelling when you're talking about S35VN, titanium. I mean, it's all the materials that we all like and enjoy nowadays, but still at prices that aren't insane compared to what, kind of even budget-end knives are really kind of going for these days. So anyways, I will say, now thinking about it, there was a fixed blade variant of the T1 that I think was actually called the T2, which was a pretty cool fixed blade. Actually, it had a forward finger choil, kind of, obviously because it didn't need this space here for the pivoting folding action. So they basically just turned this into a large finger choil, which was pretty darn nice. And other than that, it was virtually identical. So. But anyways, I'm not sure a lot of people know that. They're hard to find, if you can even find one these days. There may be one or two kind of sitting out there. But anyway, so Kizer T1, I love it. I've always loved it. That brings us to kind of the new model here that came out by, I think it's a partnership with Mojave Outdoors. Now, this is the first time I've purchased from Mojave, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But and overall it was positive. It's kind of a quirky little company, I think, whatever it actually is. But when I saw this variant came out, and it was actually my buddy Jake from Ohio State was like, hey, he loves the T1 as well. We're both Kizer people. And he was like, this is coming out. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I've not been huge on a bunch of knives lately. And now I'm thinking about buying one that's basically the same knife that I've had for years. And so I was a little apprehensive, and I also thought, well, boy, how well could it live up to the excellence that I think the Kizer T1 represents, at least the original classic version. So I was a little apprehensive, to be honest. But then ultimately I said, you know what? How could I not? How could I not get it? For as much as I love the classic version, I wouldn't be doing myself a service if I, at least for my own curiosity, picked one of these up and checked it out. And I'm really actually glad I did. Especially for the price I paid. And we'll talk about that. These are listed for like $76 or something around there, but with using a discount code and something else, I think I got it for like 60 something. And yeah, for that price in particular, this is really compelling, I think, for the excellence that, again, I think Kizer has delivered with this particular model. So we'll do sort of a classic-y, mild-mannered review with this. We'll talk about the blade, the action, the scales, and then carry. Those are kind of the main areas that I think are worth focusing on and talking about in comparison to the original T1, which, by the way, would run you around 175, 150, 175, 200. Don't pay 200. There's plenty out there for 150, 175 if you can find them. You just won't get that rad floral pivot unless you can get an older one. So let's go ahead and get into this, because I think those are the areas that I think are most different, at least in terms of aesthetics and materials, obviously. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So let's talk about the blade. So first and foremost, you'll notice this is a black DLC coated blade. Now, obviously, same grind, same design. You know, that classic pretty drop point sort of look. Nothing really different there, apart from obviously, like I said, the coating. But the steel is also different.
Aha! Aha!
And it is 154 cm, as you can see right there. Now, 154 cm is actually one of my favorite budget steels. I mean, I think there is a reason 154 cm is used by a lot of custom makers. I mean, it's used by Pocketknives, right, which is an excellent maker, we all know, based here in the United States. And it's just one of those steels that really, for the price, for what you're getting for the money, you're really getting a lot, I think. Now, again, it's 154 cm. It's not the powder metallurgy, you know, CPM 154, but that's neither here nor there. I really think for the price and for the value, I really like to see 154 cm. I would have been pretty disappointed if this had been like an N690 or something like that. Not because I hate N690 or something.
You sit on a throne of lies.
It's just not one of my favorites. And frankly, I've seen that come out on a lot of Kizer models this past year or so. So it really would have been, it might have actually changed my opinion too on whether or not I was going to pick it up. So 154 cm, black coated blade, if you like that. Yeah, I don't know. So there you go. That's kind of what we got with blade. Now, action on the original, this is why it's one of my favorites. I mean, it's just a gorgeous, smooth, buttery smooth action. Always has been, with a fantastic detent. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. I mean, it's always been beautiful. And I think on par with just about anything. Now, listen, it's running on ball bearings, all those things that you'd expect a smooth action, certainly. But when this knife was originally coming out, you know, you weren't seeing as much of that. And so this was really, yeah, I just really always loved the action. And I was worried, in particular the detent. What were they going to do with this? Well, yeah, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's just fantastic. Not only that, it's got a great just close on it as well. Now, again, running on you know, cage ball bearings, all that kind of stuff. So you would hope that it would be that way. But yeah, I mean, talk about nailing the detent. I mean, there's not even that little bit of wiggle that some knives get, you know, if you just kind of touch the thumb stud, particularly on thumb studs. Sometimes flippers do it a little bit too, where you get that sort of closed position wiggle just before it sort of overcomes the detent. This one has none of that. It's just rock solid. Fires open, obviously no blade play, no blade rock, none of that nonsense. So really, really excellent action. Well done, Kizer. That pleased me a great deal, that it really did live up to the original. Now, a little bit of a difference in feeling, obviously, though, because this is a liner lock with nested liners, and we'll talk about that in a sec, as a departure from the frame lock model that the original version utilized. So, you know, I mean, hey, something different, and obviously with micarta, that's the way you're going to do it. But you know, do I like one better than the other? I don't know. It's got the thumb studs, I think, which is most important to me. I've never had a problem with the frame lock on this because it never had some of that horrible, you know, lock stick, or not lock stick. What's the word I'm looking for? Lock bar, like
What?
any pressure on the lock bar that keeps it from opening, which can be really frustrating on a few knives. This one never had any of that. You obviously avoid that completely with the liner lock, but you also notice there's not even any lock stick or anything like that. You might have just heard a toilet flush. If you did, I apologize. My youngest daughter does not generally see the need to close the bathroom door when she goes. So anyway, sorry about the sound effects there. Hopefully the flush was the worst of it. So there you go. That's sort of what we're looking at in action here. Again, like I said, beautiful thwack, opens right up, rock solid, perfect detent, really perfect dialed in detent. Really, really happy with that. All right, now let's talk about scales and hardware a bit, because that's where some of the other major change on this is, right? We've got this black micarta, and you know, this black micarta is really similar, I think, to some of the other micartas I've seen coming out of Kizer. I had the Inyon around here not that long ago. And the Quatch too, the Kizer Quatch also had that, and you can check those reviews out if you want. But they just have really nice micarta. And this is part of their Vanguard series, this particular knife, which means it's that sort of more budget-friendly materials, whatever. But Kizer, generally speaking, in their Vanguard series does not cut corners on execution. Let me put it that way. I mean, they choose their materials wisely to, you know, help cut down the costs, but the actual sort of production of the knife remains pretty high level. So I've always enjoyed that about their Vanguard series as well. But anyways, you've got this nice, really nice black micarta, which I think is as good a micarta as you're going to find out there, generally speaking, especially at this price point. And again, we're talking, I got this for like 60 some bucks. You got some blacked out hardware. Obviously, the back spacer, which also is the lanyard hole there, is blacked out as well. You do have stainless steel liners. Obviously, you'd need some sort of a liner here as part of the liner lock, but they did it on both sides. And I actually appreciate that. I appreciate that because I'm not a fan of knives that are just plain old micarta scales. I'm kind of the same with even G10 to a degree, although less with G10. But plain micarta, more with carbon fiber, I should say. But just plain micarta can sometimes have a little bit of give. It can sometimes sound a little hollow too. It's something about the acoustics. I'm sure it has nothing to do with actual quality of the build, but the sound, acoustics of it, and the little bit of flex that can come with micarta, not a huge fan of. So really did like the fact that they went with full nested liners on this. And I mean, they are stainless steel, of course, but they did try to do, I don't know if you can see in there, I apologize, I probably can't. But they did try to do some lightning work as best they could to cut holes in there to keep this thing a little lighter. And in fact, it's over an ounce lighter than the original. This one's like 4.39 or something like that, if my memory serves. And this one is like 3.31 or something. So a full ounce lighter. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. That's one of the only drawbacks that I really have with this, is that I think it's a little on the heavy side for its size. But yeah, so going that route with the micarta, the nested liners, everything like that, you really do get to take advantage of a more lightweight package, right? So cool. All right, so we talked scales, we talked hardware. Let's talk about carry and ergos a little bit better. So obviously, titanium milled clip on the original, but this one, oh, thank you. While I don't love when they put a clip over one of the other pieces of hardware. I'm not super, I just feel like maybe they could have canted it a little bit more. I don't know, whatever. But the fact that this isn't one of those horrible Kizer clips that I'm now looking for on the table to see if I can find one. Bear with me for just a second. Don't go away. I'm just wandering here. Oh, gosh darn it. Where would I have one? Well, whatever. I don't have one nearby. I apologize. Thanks for staying with me if you did. Just their Vanguard series clips just sucked. I'm sorry. They were terrible. They've been terrible for a long time. Not that they didn't work, but they just weren't attractive. They weren't that great. They didn't have a lot of spring or flexibility. This is a much nicer clip. It's simple. It's not that big. I could maybe have seen it go another 1/4 of an inch or something like that, especially for a knife this size. But overall, flat panhead screws, even if it's not recessed in, it's just a much better carrying experience than a lot of their Vanguard knives. And I know they've been making that change lately anyways, so keep on that, Kizer. Appreciate it. I wish it didn't take as long as it had, but I'm glad that you're making the change now. All right, and then, ergos, I think it kind of goes without saying. I still think this is one of the best ergonomic knives, again, out there, period. You can choke up if you want. It's a little risky with the way that blade termination point is there with the grind. But, just overall, a fantastic knife, and really doing honor and homage to the original Uli Hennecke design. I mean, they're both Uli Hennecke designs, but that original Kizer T1, which really did steal my heart and continues to have a significant place in it, this one really does bring a lot to the table for the price. And in fact, comparing some of the other options that are out there right now in the more budget-friendly knife arena, yeah, I'm not sure. 154 cm, this really nice micarta, great execution. I'd be thinking about this before I might pull the trigger on some of the other knives that are kind of being offered out there by the competition, at least at the moment. So really well done, Kizer. I really like that. Thank you to Mojave Outdoors for doing this. I mean, I purchased it myself, but I'm glad to see that they went after this one to try to do an update. By the way, that company, a little weird. I'm not sure exactly what's up with them, how they operate. This did come to me from an Amazon truck. So I purchased it through their website, but then it came to me on an Amazon truck. So they clearly have some sort of fulfillment arrangement with Amazon, which, hey, I'm a Prime member, so I wasn't complaining about that, right? It showed up in like literally 2 days. So very, very cool. And, didn't really have to pay for it. So All that said, really happy with this knife. There's going to be, I'm sure, other reviews out there for folks who have picked it up. Like I said, Jake from Ohio State, I'm sure will do one, and others. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with the channel. I know I'm not the most regular of knife content producers, EDC gear producers out there. Fact. I kind of just work at my own pace. So thanks for hanging in there and staying subscribed. And if you're new, I really appreciate you sticking by and checking it out. So anyways, with all that, stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to one another. And all the best.